you want to lose fat and gain muscle at the same time, you may have heard that this is impossible. But what if I told you that science proved this holy grail of diet and exercise to be completely achievable? In this video, I'm going to break down how science proves that we can lose fat and build muscle at the exact same time, as well as the 3 must-do changes that you can make to do it for yourself. But before we do, I want to tell you who I am and why I think you can listen to me. My name is Joe Joheim, and I own defaultkings.com, where I've helped over 502 men achieve and sustain their ideal body weight. I make these videos to share my experiences from working with people of all different backgrounds, from NFL athletes to soccer moms, so that you can go out and easily get in shape and stay in shape, no matter your needs or your starting point. With that being said, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and let's get into how you can lose fat and build muscle at the exact same time. So first things first, what are the misconceptions about losing fat and building muscle at the same time? Most misconceptions stem from just a lack of understanding of the definition of muscle, fat, and weight. Fat does not equal weight. Muscle does not equal weight. Weight in this context is just defined as the heaviness of a thing, or specifically a person. While fat and muscle each make up a certain percentage of somebody's weight, which is otherwise known as body composition, it's important to understand that losing fat is not the same as losing weight, and gaining muscle is not the same as gaining weight. When you see the number on the scale going either up or down, it's simply showing you the change in weight, but it gives you zero inclination as to how somebody's muscle mass or fat mass, which is otherwise again known as body composition, is changing. A study conducted by McMaster University took a group of young men and took them through a rigorous 6-day per week training protocol. Now, simultaneously, they also cut their calorie intake by 40% from their regularly required calories. So that means if they usually required 2,000 calories a day for this month-long period, they were eating 1,200 calories a day, which is obviously a pretty drastic calorie deficit, especially coupled with these 6 days a week of rigorous exercise, which from the sounds of it, they weren't doing before the study. Researchers then divided their subjects into 2 groups. Both of those groups were doing the same exercise and eating the same low-calorie diet, but group A consumed a high-protein diet and group B consumed a low-protein diet. Now, I can't find exactly how they defined a high-protein diet, but I have a number that's also backed by a study that I will give you later in the video that I think is the proper way to define a high protein diet for a calorie restriction like this. So at the end of the study, the higher protein group experienced an average gain in muscle mass of 2.5 pounds, while the low protein diet group didn't experience any at all. Now, it's important to note that while that low protein group didn't gain any muscle mass, they also didn't lose any. Now, most of you would have probably expected that low protein group to actually lose muscle mass, given the fact that they were in such a severe calorie deficit, and of course, they were eating a low protein diet. But on a short time horizon, like this study was conducted, only a month, if you exercise intensely, you are going to actually give your muscle enough stimulus for it to retain itself, even in a suboptimal nutritional circumstance like this study. Lastly, the high protein group ended up losing an average of 10.5 pounds, while the low protein group ended up only losing an average of 8 pounds. Now, technically, the paper overviewing this study labels this section as loss of fat, but when you really dive into the text, it doesn't explicitly state that that weight lost was fat mass lost. It just says weight. So for the sake of your understanding of fat versus weight, I'm not going to label this as fat lost. I'm going to keep it as weight loss, which is what the text of the study says. Even though it's a pretty safe assumption that the majority of that 10.5 pounds the high protein group lost was mostly comprised of fat, since they did explicitly gain 2.5 pounds of muscle mass. Hey, what's going on? Hope you're enjoying the video. Real quick, if you are a family-minded man that wants to learn more about how my team and I will work with you one-on-one using our default actions framework to help you lose 10% of your body weight for good, and how we'll refund you in full if you gain a single pound back after working with us, all you have to do is go to www.defaultkings.com and book a free brainstorm chat with one of the fat loss experts on my team so they can tell you exactly how we can possibly help you. So what can we conclude from this study and the multiple others that have looked into this topic? We can conclude that losing fat mass while simultaneously building muscle mass is possible, so long as you're adequately stimulating your muscles and consuming a high protein diet. Now, how do you go out and do this for yourself? You are going to make these 3 eating and exercise changes starting today. You are going to go to Google and type in St. Mifflin Gior calculator. And then with the very first search result, you are going to use the calorie calculator that they have on their website for you. Enter your height, age, weight, and any other statistics that they might need from you to find your basal metabolic rate, otherwise known as BMR. Your BMR is your baseline calorie needs and should not be confused with your total daily energy expenditure, otherwise known as TDEE. Your TDEE is your BMR plus your activity levels and other factors. Now, the reason I encourage my clients, and I'm encouraging you to focus on BMR instead of TDEE, is because most people have a wildly inaccurate estimation of what their actual daily activity levels are, which causes them to overestimate it and then leads to an insufficient calorie deficit. So to be safe, just use your BMR. Now, once you have this BMR, I want your daily calorie intake to either match that BMR or up to 250 calories below your BMR. So let's say your BMR comes out to 1,750 calories. This would mean daily, you should be eating between 1,500 and 1,750 calories. You can go ahead and experiment with this on a short time horizon, such as 6 weeks. Eating at or below your BMR for a long time period, such as 6 months or more, can technically be dangerous. But on a short time horizon, such as 6 weeks, you're totally fine. Now, the more active that you are during those 6 weeks, the bigger your calorie deficit will become, and therefore the faster you'll see results in progress. You can track all of this intake for free using the app MyFitnessPal, and it should be available on every single app store. So once you make change number 1, which is eating in a calorie deficit, move on to change number 2. What is your goal body weight? Let's say you're 250 pounds and your goal is to get to 200 pounds. I want you to use that number 200 pounds for this equation. So you want to do your goal body weight times 1 gram of protein to find your daily minimum protein intake. So for this example, 200 pounds is your goal body weight, multiply that by 1. That means 200 grams of protein would be your daily minimum protein intake. Now, if you're new to a high protein diet, you can start out as low as 0.6 to 0.7 grams of protein times your goal body weight, but your goal should be to scale that to 1 gram per pound of your goal body weight as fast as you possibly can. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned how the original study did not define a high protein diet, but I've just prescribed you 1 gram per pound of your goal body weight per day. The reason I've done that is because I believe it is the gold standard for a high protein diet. This is backed by a 2018 study that showed every single subject that was on a high protein muscle building diet of 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight per day gained muscle while losing fat. So not only are you going to be making change number 1, which is eat in a calorie deficit, you're also going to be making change number 2, which is eat a high protein diet. Now it's time for change number 3. Are you stimulating your muscles? Based on the study we reviewed earlier, the researchers found that a rigorous 6-day per week exercise protocol was enough to stimulate the muscles and retain muscle mass, even in a strict calorie deficit and with a low protein diet. Now, the study did not specify the exact training modalities that were used over the course of that month, but it's pretty safe to assume that resistance training was involved in some capacity. And that assumption is backed by the fact that there is a plethora of research out there supporting the fact that resistance training is the most effective training modality for muscle growth and muscle retention. For those of you that don't know, resistance training is any type of training where muscle contraction is resisted by an opposing force. This is most commonly executed by lifting weights such as barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells, or even using things like resistance bands, your own body weight, or calisthenics focused programs. Now, when it comes to optimizing this resistance training, there is a 2019 study that found the optimal way to resistance train for muscle growth was as follows: 3 to 6 sets, 6 to 12 repetitions, moderate intensity of 60 to 80% of your 1 rep max for that movement, training volume in the range of 12 to 28 sets per muscle group per week. Now, this was not in the study, but I'm going to advise you to do it as well because there's other studies that prove this, and I've seen this in my own experience coaching people, is don't forget to progressively overload that, meaning every week when you come in, aim to either increase the sets, increase the reps, or increase the weight from your previous training week. One other thing that I would recommend you to do as well is when you're resistance training, make sure that on your working sets, you are coming within 2 reps of mechanical failure. This means after you've done your warm-up sets and you're doing your working sets, you should leave no more than 2 reps left in the tank at any given time. And this means literally not being able to do it, not mentally, but physically. If there was a gun to your head, you could not do 2 more reps. That is mechanical failure. In my personal experience and coaching experience, I've by far seen the most important variable for gaining muscle mass while simultaneously losing fat be the intensity to which you stimulate those muscles, which is why I'm such a big proponent of training within 2 reps of mechanical failure. So for change number 3, which is do intense resistance training, you should be able to make that happen with just 3 to 4 weeks dedicated to resistance training. So first things first, make change number 1, which is eat in a calorie deficit. Then you make change number 2, which is eat a high protein diet. And lastly, you make change number 3, which is do intense resistance training. And if you're a guy that wants to learn more about how my team and I will work with you one-on-one using our default actions framework to help you lose 10% of your body weight in 12 weeks or less, and how we'll refund you in full if you gain a single pound back after working with us, all you need to do is go to defaultkings.com and book a free brainstorm chat with one of the fat loss experts on my team, where they'll tell you all about how we can help you achieve these goals that you have. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, comment, and share to make sure it gets pushed to other people that may benefit from it. And while this video broke down how you can lose fat and build muscle at the same time, my last video broke down how you can prevent binge eating.